It's that time again. We are showcasing the Atari 2600 games you deemed your favorites, right here in the Commenters Top 10, Volume 5. There's a lot of great ones, so let's get started. Number 1, Haunted House. Haunted House blends some of the elements from games like Adventure and Raiders of the Lost Ark. You begin as a pair of eyeballs in the dark as you search through an old 4-story haunted mansion for pieces of the magical urn. You light your matches to see what's on the ground around you. In other variations of the game, you have to find a key to unlock doors in the mansion as well. Once you have all 3 urn pieces, you make your way back downstairs and leave the mansion to win the game. I was impressed with Haunted House and the fact that it randomizes the game each time you play, so you don't have the same game over and over again. Much like E.T. Now, I never really had a chance to play this game until now, but I did play the Atari's re-release of Haunted House on the Wii. I didn't mind that game, and it was enjoyable to play. Haunted House would have been quite welcome in my collection. Number 2, Battlezone. This arcade classic has a really well done port for the Atari 2600. No, it's not the vector goodness of the arcade, but it does bring its A game to the single stick control of a twin stick game. I used to play this game at the local mom and pop pizza place when I was growing up as a kid, and I just loved looking through the viewfinder to immerse myself into this game. The Atari port had many of the aesthetics of the arcade, such as the radar, which is really well done, and the lock-on retinal and the snippet from the 1812 overture, but it does not have the obstacles on the ground as they do in the arcade. Even though it wasn't 100% the same as the arcade, it still was a great at-home port that would have kept any fan of the game quite happy. Number 3, Super Breakout. This excellent port of the arcade game gives the player several different types of games to play, such as double and cavity. It even speeds up once you break through the layers further in. Although once that happened, it was game over for me. So if Breakout was one of your favorite arcade games, I can see why many of you out there called this one of your top games. Number 4, Indy 500. Being from Indiana, the Indy 500 has a special place for me as it is something unique to our state. Indy 500 came with 2 special driving controllers that allowed for infinite 360-degree control similar to the Iron Man Stewart Super Off-Road arcade controls. My brother and I spent many hours playing the many different game modes like Grand Prix, Crash and Score, Tag, and Ice Race. Crash and Score was probably our favorite, following Tag and Ice Race. We loved drifting around the corners in the ice race and trying to beat each other out to score and Crash and Score. One of the best things about the game was it was a 2-player game for sure. I'm glad that so many of you out there enjoyed this game as well. Number 5, Bowling. Bowling is one of those games that I hadn't had this much fun playing since Wii Sports Bowling. Being able to control the curve of the ball to completely steerable on several of the game modes was always quite fun. There's nothing like getting a strike and doing the happy dance, followed by a spare and doing the little happy dance. So, even though bowling was very arcade-like in gameplay, it was still a delight to play, and I see why it was on many of your lists. Number 6, Amidar. Now, this game I am definitely not familiar with. I've never seen it for the Atari, nor at the arcade. First, you're a gorilla being chased by wild warriors, then you're a paint roller being chased by pigs, all while running around a grid and trying to capture each section of it like in Quicks. I guess games just hit differently back then. It definitely had a Pac-Man / Burger Time kind of feel to the gameplay. You could press your button to basically do a stomp to off-balance the baddies to get past them, but it lasted a very little amount of time. I was quite terrible at this game, but I imagine with a lot more time I would have started doing way better, and kudos to all of you out there that could get pretty far in this game. Number 7, Fishing Derby. Fishing Derby would have been quite welcome at my house to play against my brother, as it was a very fun competitive game. It is a 1 to 2 player game of who can catch the most pounds of fish, and from how deep without getting eaten by the shark. There are 6 rows of fish. Row 1 to 2 are 2 pounds, row 3 to 4 are 4 pounds, and row 5 and 6 are 6 pounds. The first fisherman to land 99 pounds wins the derby. It's a pretty simple concept of a game, but it's loads of fun. Thank you to everyone out there for suggesting it. Number 8, Missile Command. This Atari port brings home the action of the Missile Command arcade straight to your console. With some minor differences from the Atari version compared to the arcade, it still embodies the spirit of the game. There is only 1 missile base instead of the 3 in the arcade, and there are no planes flying by to drop bombs either. But the gameplay's just the same. I do like in the Atari version that there's a little mushroom cloud where the city was when it was hit, versus in the arcade where it just removes the color after being hit. All in all, a very good port of a classic arcade game. Number 9, Skiing. Let's get ready for some hot dogging action in Activision skiing for Atari. You have two different game modes to choose from slalom and downhill racing. This game uses nothing but the stick, and once you've started playing, if you press the controller button, it will reset the game. The graphics and layout of the game are pretty good for Atari standards, and it reminds me of a Windows game I used to play a lot called Ski Free. The game is not so much based on points as it is more about the number of gates or meters you go and in what time. All in all, skiing has its charm in mastering the Atari controller to start shaving off the seconds on your runtime. And number 10, Joust. Joust was one of those arcades that had simple controls, but it was hard to master. At least it was for me when I was a kid. The Atari port of Joust was pretty amazing, considering that the animations, play, and feel looked and felt just like the arcade, despite not being as detailed. The logo for the Atari port was well done, and Joust had a Smash Brothers feel to the gameplay. I would say that the Atari version of Joust, much like the Atari version of Dig Dug, is well constructed and is much deserving of all your praise as one of your favorite Atari games. Thanks to everyone out there for taking me all down your memory lanes of your favorite Atari 2600 games. Stay logged into the DI for the next video, but until then, Digital Infinity out.